That's really true.
This lively group of women are not only good friends, they were once colleagues who had long careers at Lincoln Public Schools. Among them is Jody Batten, a former teacher who devoted her life to shaping young minds. Jody's passion for education may be tied to her family story. Perhaps influenced by the inequities her mother faced, having been denied the chance to study beyond high school.
My dad was a farmer. He was college educated. Mother came from a family where you educated the boys, but not the girls, so the boys got educations.
Before her marriage to Albert Loader, Minnie Decker worked part-time at a downtown Lincoln department store. But following the custom of the time, she left her job when she became a wife, and later welcomed the Loaders' only child, Jody. When Jody turned 5, Minnie's former employer invited her to return to work.
When I was 5, Charlie Simon came to her and said, "Min, we like the way you dress Jody, so we'd like for you to start a children's department for us, a girls' department." Mother said, "I don't have any experience. I can't do that." And he said, "Oh, I'll hold your hand in the market. You'll be fine." This was on Thursday, and on Saturday she went to New York and became the buyer for Ben Simon & Sons Children's Department.
Minnie Loader excelled in her work. Eventually, the family moved to Lincoln, where Albert started a small business. Minnie continued her career as a buyer, traveling to New York City 4 times a year.
My first trip to New York was my graduation present at 18. And we went back to the market, and I got to see what she did.
Jody's education was important to her parents. In high school, Jody attended a prestigious girls' school in St. Louis. On her graduation, she had the opportunity to attend college in the East. But Jody missed her old friends and came home to dear old Nebraska U. And that's when she stepped into a bit of Husker history.
Somebody came to me and said, "We're having cheerleader tryouts. Why don't you come try out?" And I was into activities from the very beginning, and I tried out and made it. We were not skilled. We were not pom-pom girls. We didn't do the acrobatics. We cheered. You had to get used to the sound of what was happening on the field because you were down by the player's bench and you heard all of the hitting, and you'd see all of the blood that they were shedding on the field. And you had to be sure that the crowd kept involved. They had the corn cobs for men and the tassels for women, and they were cheer groups. The only one I really remember was a Nebraska cheer, and it was really easy, Nebraska. 3 times, yay. I'm sure there were others that were more complicated than that, but I don't remember them.
In the early 1950s, Jody graduated from Nebraska with a teaching degree. Her first job was at Fremont Public Schools. There, she discovered her students would continue her education.
We had a girl who came from the Sandhills, and she had learning problems. And the gentleness with which she was treated by her live-in mates, but also by the classmates, was a great thing to see. The kids just kind of melded together. Whatever they accomplished as a team. I remember it as being a magical year.
After 3 happy years in Fremont, Jody was searching for something new. And as it so happened, so were a few of her hometown friends.
2 gals from up the street who were both in advertising, and they'd been in San Francisco that summer. I had traveled there that summer with friends. And we were playing bridge and talking about that experience and decided that it might be fun to move to San Francisco and get a job.
Jody soon realized moving to California was the easy part.
Fools rush in where angels fear to tread.
It was September, and school was already in session. There were no open positions. At semester break, Jody began teaching at a racially integrated elementary school where parental involvement was heavily encouraged. Eventually, Jody ended up in Palo Alto, where she had her first experience working with gifted students.
The school was in an area where there were a lot of Stanford professors, so I could call on them as resources. One of the students my first year was Jimmy Hewlett, and his dad was Hewlett Packard.
Jody fell in love and married while living in California. She later gave birth to a son, but the marriage didn't last, and so she returned to Lincoln.
I was so busy trying to keep my life together, and that was the first time I had taught kindergarten, so I was just concentrating on that, learning to deal with that age student. So there were things that kept me thinking about how to use the skills that I had learned with gifted kids.
In the late 1960s, Jody's teaching abilities earned her a spot on a team pioneering the gifted student program at Lincoln Public Schools.
There was a group of parents that thought the program should be one way, and then there was the way we were doing it. And that was a very difficult time.
There needs to be insurance that all students, that all districts provide for the development of students that have extraordinary ability and potential.
We lived through that, and if it were not for them, we would not have the highly gifted program. It's a mentor program where we provide an hour a day in the student's area of expertise, of instruction.
Jody's dedication to learning extended beyond the classroom. In the late 1980s, she served on the committee that went on to found the Lincoln Children's Museum.
We started working on the idea of a children's museum, and we did a mock museum. This was put together probably within 2 months. These were all homemade exhibits. We had a big, huge chair that dwarfed the kids in size. We had experiments that had been worked up by community members. It was open for, I think, 3 days to determine the interest in the city. Huge attendance. The initial board then was formed, and we opened the Children's Museum one cold November day.
Today, the museum welcomes over 150,000 children and their families each year, and has earned a spot among the top 20 children's museums in the country, according to Parents Magazine. Jody's commitment to education and her community has been extraordinary, but her lasting legacy lies in the students she mentored, always cheering them on to brighter futures.
I was really close to my students. They were a part of my family. So it's their personal experiences, their lives, that were important to me.